Well, guys, we did it. We finally set a huge milestone here on the channel with our car. That's right, a 1.736. Never would have thought I would have ever hit times like that, but it just goes to show you that if you are willing to commit at multiple levels, that anybody can have success in this sport, even if you're not a part of a large racing team or an establishment. I want to take you through a 48-hour journey of ups and downs and ups, so that way you get a full understanding of what you basically need to do to run at this level. We'll show you all the things that I tried on the car that did work, didn't work. We'll go over a little bit of tuning because ironically, even those master tunes that people have out there just don't work on your car. So let's get started on this, shall we? I'm Chad, this is the Dorky and 40 RC channel, and we are gonna make you faster today. 9,300 subs, guys. We're averaging so many views, 250 plus subscribers to the channel every month and growing. Love it. Thank you for the continued support. Thank you for all of you that donate to the channel as well. If you feel that you get something out of this video at all, you can always donate to me at the paypal.me link below. I promise you that goes towards editing costs and all that kind of stuff like that. I'm not buying car parts with all that money. It's not that lot, but a lot of you have been contributing lately, and we greatly appreciate that here. So as many of you know from my last video last week, it was horrible. Waiting for parts this week was almost as difficult as the journey itself. So when the parts finally arrived Friday, I immediately began installing all of the parts from 5-Star, and I went a little bit wild here, and things, well, take a look at this video here and we'll show you what's going on. I did not do anything drag racing related all week long except browse the forums and shop and things like that and try to decide what I wanted to do with the car. So truth be told, there is another car that is going to be coming here very soon to the channel, and I'm super excited about that. We'll save that and let you guys see what that is going to be all about. But until then, we've got the 5-Star breakout car here, and she looks a lot different than she did before. I called up and spoke with Kyle a little bit on the phone. I really decided that I wanted to make a platform change after a while. This car has served me well. It's doing really good. We'll see how it does tonight. It's pretty much, from what I understand, you could call it almost like a breakout V2/3/4 strip, their new car coming out, just because we did a lot of different things to it here. So what we did is we completely dropped this car down when it comes to the front shock tower, rear shock tower, all that kind of stuff. And it looks like they're going with these Yeah Racing big bore damper shock kits, which you get like a lot of tuning options inside here. You can run up to 6-hole pistons that are completely adjustable, everything else like that. So these are pretty nice. It's a $55 kit. They're touring car shocks basically, or drift car shocks, something like that. And you know, they're really similar to a lot of the shocks out there that other manufacturers like, you know, R1, GFRP, you know, some make their own, some don't, but everybody's got it going this small shock route just because they're trying to get away from the complete buggy build platform so they could save you and I money. Because the big downer, of course, of buying most of these chassis is that you always have to buy that donor car, or like R1 says, the 95% car. So that's immediately going to add another $300 to $400 on top of your car that you want to purchase as far as your chassis kit and stuff goes. Not to mention all the nice little extras that you might want to get, like brass, injection molded parts, different kind of wheelie bars, all that kind of fun. So quite honestly, I've been working on this thing all day today. You know, this is kind of like one of those figure some things out as you go type of deals. The best thing about this whole ride right now, at least in my opinion, is I'm down below 2,300 grams now. I'm at like 2,257 all up. It is so hard to believe that I have shaved off 800 grams off of my drag car in the past like 2.5 to 3 months. And we've done even more here, you know, going to like Velcro straps, things like that. I can actually start adding weight on now, I think, if I wanted to, like in a high traction environment and stuff like that. Of course, we got the GNSS on here, but I could also add the weight box on here and start filling it up with little weights if I wanted to, and all that kind of fun stuff. We got the Castle, of course, in here with the R1 ESC, which is the fastest ESC that is out there. I mean, I have seen so many people just drop the R1 in and put in just a basic tune and immediately go faster. Now, definitely helps if you have an M17. If you don't, you might be able to get by with a 7PXR. You know, get one and try it and let everybody know how you are doing it. And if you can't do it with the 7PXR or 4PXR and you're really, really into drag racing, then don't hesitate to sell that thing and get the M17, because it just still seems that like the M17 is still a key piece of that puzzle to making all this stuff go really fast. So if we give you another shot here of the actual build, you can just see just how short all of this stuff is right now and how little these touring car shocks are. That we did have to actually change the transmission riser that is in here. And I'm running a kind of a different configuration. I'm running a Pro Squat configuration on here right now. And what the Pro Squat configuration is most of our buggy kits, your C and D block, will usually run like a 0 in the front on a C block and a D and a -1 kind of, so you have like droop and a squat and stuff like that, you know, in the actual rear end. So it basically means that your rear end is kind of tilted like this to kind of, you know, force that grip down or something like that. So it seems like a lot of people now are moving to the opposite now, which is a Pro Squat. And so for high traction environments, the actual tire now is going to be kicked forward 1 degree. So the C block will be 1 degree lower, 0 degrees here. So now our angle is this way. And it definitely does work a little bit different with your suspension from all the stuff that I can read and that I have heard about. And it can also help, of course, increase forward grip, because you're almost already starting in a forward position versus, you know, kind of like that squatting position. And we'll see how it works. You know, hopefully this car runs good tonight and we know exactly what's happening with it and we can see a difference. All right, so we saw a difference. All right, the car would just not launch at all. Now, I'm not 100% sure why. I honestly just couldn't get it to lick, you know, 3 or 4 times. I couldn't get it to go further than, you know, 5-10 feet without it spinning out. Obviously, this stuff all works, but like when you're trying to mesh these different like platforms and all this stuff together, even though I thought Kyle was, you know, very helpful and everything else, it just didn't work. So I went home that night because it was early, went back to Sam's Club, changed out the buggy shocks to the rear, and it got a little bit better, but things were just not bad. And the big culprit was these shocks here. These things like leak like the Exxon Valdez. I mean, I tried putting X-rings in them and everything else like that. So, you know, these cutest touring car shocks here are no bueno. I tell you what, if they plan on running these or giving these and selling these on the strip, then they need to tell everybody how the hell you're supposed to seal these things up. You know, they're literally, the cartridge is 1 X-ring or 1 O-ring, a pretty cheap injection molded plastic. It's not like, you know, a real thick, nice shock hat like you get with an Associated, and then just a cap. I mean, they all fit together really good and they feel good, but they don't hold oil worth a damn. So those things are out, which basically means I had to get rid of the shock towers and everything else like that. And that all happened on Saturday night. So keep in mind, I basically put about a solid 8 to 9 hours here on the bench, on and off, doing things, of course, but just, you know, rebuilding the entire car. And, you know, it will shock you to find out that once that happened on Saturday night and I tried to just make things work, I didn't have any extra parts. I had all of my original shock parts. I was just like, screw it. We're going back to the original stuff and just running that. And that's basically, you know, what we have. I mean, And that's basically what we have here. So we went back to the thick high mount in the front and in the back, and we actually went back to the old transmission riser, and back to the old pill configuration, which had the 1 degree of anti-squat built into it. Actually, I think it's 2 degrees of anti-squat. And, you know, we redid all that stuff, put more hours of work into that. I got up real early on Sunday morning and got all that stuff done. And I was pretty much all done with the car and ready to make some test hits by noon. So I went over to the practice spot and started doing some test hits, and the car was rocking and rolling really good. I noticed that things were just kind of a little wobbly and that the steering was very, very unpredictable. And I kind of needed to look at the car a little bit closer. So when I looked at the car actually a little bit closer, what I found was these the 3mm holes inside here that are countersunk actually were just basically disintegrating from just all of the force that we're putting on these cars right now. And I mean, that is the going topic. I just got done listening to the TSR podcast. And if you've been seeing people's updates on super chips, you know, the truth of the matter is that we are pushing these things just super hard now, and like things are failing left and right. You know, so that is a huge failure right there if you just can't steer. And basically what was happening was, you know, the whole front arms were completely wobbly. So I drilled these things out and tapped the actual caster blocks underneath with M4. It was as good as a hot fix as I could do. And it seems to have worked out pretty well, obviously, but still, I just don't trust it, and it's not very predictable at all. So yeah, that is the car. It is back to pretty much the OG configuration that we had a couple weeks ago, except the thicker and the taller original shock towers. And it's working fine. It's great. You know, it's going to be replaced for sure. I am not going to like get rid of the car. It's going to be a nice testing platform for other stuff. I did order another chassis to replace this one with, and some new caster blocks up there that are all messed up and everything, so we can get that steering rack back and rigid and not break things. But speaking of breaking things, you know, and this is where we get back into stuff. I mean, I saw people just kind of like breaking stuff left and right, like all weekend. You know, again, we're pushing hard, and listening to the TSR podcast again, it sounds like, you know, that is the going theme. And here's just a little sample. So I had some tires blow apart. I saw tires blowing, like, you know, whether the belts were blowing this weekend or tires just blowing off the bead. So, you know, your glue jobs and everything like that, like, have to be done really good. Even if they're really good, you know, like these are, I spent a lot of time like gluing up these Voodoo Reds on the wide wheels here. But like, you know, just the extra pressure right there from the wide wheel, which I've kind of switched away from wide wheels anyway, went to the narrow. They seem to just work better, and they don't interfere with your body as much and everything else. So, you know, I'm going to be baking these off and replacing that. But, you know, when we were out doing test hits that day to get ready for the race that night, I had like 3 really good licks. And then all of a sudden, like something happened, like half track, you know, running on brushed concrete. And if you know anything on brushed concrete, you might realize where I'm going here. I'm guessing that the car just had so much grip that the rear wheels lifted, came back down, an expansion joint or something like that, and just totally blew the transmission apart. Had to do the walk of shame, you know. So luckily, you know, I had all the transmission parts and stuff like that at home. But, you know, if you just take a look in there, you can just see all the metal shavings and stuff that are left in there. And this was like a completely, I think what happened was the diff actually, like the diff didn't blow inside because the diff still feels really good. But you could see that the shaft like blew out there, which, you know, blew out metal there, which blew out metal everywhere inside the transmission. And, you know, might have ruined the idler gear and the top shaft and stuff. I really haven't messed with it a whole lot. But yeah, you know, when we're ripping and gripping that hard, that's just how things happen. My Voodoo Reds got a big slice in them from something. I'm not 100% sure. They got a lot of passes on them now. I wish they would have lasted a little bit longer, so it sucks, you know, but it's just the way it is. But we'll talk more about the Voodoo tires here in the video. So can you feel my anguish and my pain? It's almost like just, wow, I can't believe that I powered through this. Quite honestly, at that point, I was just like, you know what? It's not even worth it. I'm not even going to race Sunday night. I've got a car that has a hack together front end, all this kind of stuff. But my buddy said, hey, you know, you're going to love it and you want to just push through for the next couple hours, get it done and come out and have some fun. So that's exactly what I did. So rebuilt the diff, the transmissions, put it all back inside of the actual chassis since I had already done all that work with the front steering rack and stuff. And we went out that night and, you know, let's go to that and we'll show you what happened. So the worst thing about trying to record here at events, of course, is all the generator noise. That's why I don't do a lot of stuff. And we've got probably about 15 to 20 people here tonight. Nothing big, a little bit bigger than usual, which is a good thing. An even better thing is that I finally was able to make a couple good passes on the car. I have went back to like a completely almost stock configuration on this breakout chassis, besides the rear transmission risers and the V2 wheelie bar. This thing is really on its last leg. Some of the holes underneath in the chassis are actually kind of whittled out now, and that kind of is really bad, especially when they are your steering system. So I basically had to go up from underneath and tap into the actual steering blocks and make those M4. Did the best I could. It's pretty solid. It's definitely not perfect, but it's just the way that it has to be until another chassis shows up, hopefully this week sometime or in the future. Problem is, sir, is we need a little bit more than a 2.2 out of you.
Well, that was just on a stupid tune. Just brand new tires.
Stupid tune.
So I'll...
That was a pretty dang solid rip. You could feel the tires and just hear the tires just grabbing the entire time. So as you can see, not a bad start. The GNSS actually fell out of the car during the run, and that's what was making it so loud. So really it was like slowing it down because it got trapped somewhere in the body, not 100% sure. So we'll check out the logs here, and we'll make another test hit, and I think we're going to be good to go for racing. Don't want to press my luck too hard on this one. So at this point, I honestly just could not believe what was happening. I mean, this car was gripping and ripping straight, and you saw the time right there off of that practice hit. I just can't believe that like my hack job and all that stuff worked out. So we got that all done, and we drew chips. And I drew, I think, like the second or third race of the first round. And this is what happened. Totally had me on the tree. I was at like a half second, and I think he was at like a 0.23. So we literally had to run him down, and that is what we call right there a freaking hero pass. Will I ever run that fast again? Boy, I hope so. It felt good. It was unbelievable. The GNSS, I think, said like 2.0 something at 83 miles per hour. So the math does not add up. You know, I think it comes up to 76 miles per hour if you use an actual equation, distance and speed and all that kind of stuff. So whatever, we're happy, and just all the hard work and all the freaking struggle was just paying off at this point. Second round, we just ran a you might as well call it a 2 flat 78 on the GNS. And it was either I think it was a 176. So, you know, that's pretty well cooking right there. So I should have a picture of it, and we'll flash it up right here. So I'm actually just trying to run everything real smooth for sure with this car. It's a lot heavier. It's a little bit more stable now. And we had to switch to the Voodoo Silvers, which is great. I was running the reds on wide, but the glue bead blue. So we're just getting everything all prepped up for the next round. So I cleaned the tires this time, and I'm just going to do the same thing again. Did 2 coats of Get Stuck, let the one flash, let the next one flash off as well after you apply the first one, and then I put the warmers on for a couple minutes just to heat everything up again, about a minute or 2 before the race. So it was a good start, better than what I thought, well deserved after all of the frustrations from this past weekend and this week after that crash. So we will see what happens in the next round. All right, moving on to the semifinals. This old bastard car is actually doing what it needs to do. That was a 1:08.5 run that we just did. It seems like the times are kind of getting a little bit slower. Same thing happened like last week. So I'm not gonna change a thing. Doing the same process. Gonna go right back up and just try to get off another one and make it to the finals. And unfortunately, that is where the journey ended. I got left lane that time. The car always, if it's going to do anything, it has always went to the left. So I staged the car to the very right edge of the actual left lane, and it took off like a bat out of hell. Kind of worked its way to the middle a little bit and then crossed. So that was it. I was over with. Didn't stay for the second race because, as you can just see, I look like total shit. And I felt even worse just from all of the mental and wrenching and everything that had went on that week. And for 48 hours, that is the struggle. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to communicate to you guys, is that if you want to run these super fast times, it not only takes just like the testing time and the dedication, but the things like money, time away from your family, everything else like that. Luckily, I have a very understanding wife, and she has a lot of other things that she likes to do. We just got a new puppy, so that puppy is keeping her busy and keeping me busy as well. Need to figure out a way to corral him down here a little bit so I can still get that bench time in whenever parts, chassis, whatever that stuff show up, or I need to make videos for you guys. So we learned all of that stuff this week, and now we'll just get to like some quick tuning stuff for all of you guys that stuck it out to the end. Maybe we'll redo that as well in another separate video. But when it comes to tuning, I've been in communication with some people, and I've gotten like some really, really high powered tunes. And when it came down to it, none of those really high powered tunes would work on my car at all. I pretty much had to go back to like the basic stuff on the Sanwa, a 96 ramp, and playing with the point, no curve, anything like that, 100% dual rate, all that fun stuff. And in the R1, I pretty much have the power curve just, it's like dead in the middle. And I think I was running like 25 or 30% start power that night because of the Castle motor, and its actual power stroke is a little bit different. Went back to auto throttle instead of RPM throttle. And that pretty much controlled everything for me. I did up the timing quite a bit. So, I was just trying to run and break this stuff in and try to learn, and the car has been unpredictable. So I haven't really pushed the timing, but boy, I went pretty much from like 2010 boost turbo to about, I think it was 30-20. So 50 degrees of total timing, coming in, and just kind of balancing that stuff out, looking at the graphs and the logs and stuff and seeing what's going on. Gearing was 81-29. A lot of people are doing different gearings. That seems to be like the good standard, that final drive, a 7.2 to 7.4. Get there with any combination that your chassis will handle. We're going to try some different things with gearing just to see if we can make things work a little bit more and take even more load off of the actual ESC and stuff. Battery voltages, of course, with the big R1 11400, we're always holding steady at like at least 6.8. My current reader has got to be wrong because it says I'm pulling like 460 amps on every pass. Really don't believe that, so it is what it is. I do have another R1 if I wanted to throw it in there, but it's working, so we're not going to do anything like that at all. Now, the other thing that we were doing with is tires. The Voodoos are for real, guys. I know a lot of people just like kind of shit all over them and everything else, but they make a huge difference to just how your car performs. There's just, it's no doubt about it. Like I was always just kind of like, oh man, I always wanted them, but like I never really like went all in on them, and now I'm all in on them and I'm honestly hooked. It sucks that I've lost a pair of reds. Now I'm just like craving like more silvers and golds. So if you guys are doing yourself and you ever get like another pre-order opportunity, definitely commit to those, because they will make a huge difference in your actual car and your program. Ultimately though, where we want to get with our tune is, you know, either building a power curve out in the M17 or a power curve out in the R1. Now, I've heard a lot of people having success doing it both ways. I know last year I ran my fastest time using a power curve with the 10-point power curve that you can build in the M17, you know, kind of making it launch, settle, and then launch again to get to 100%. I tried that and I just could not keep the power down with this current setup. Just couldn't do it. So I had to go back to, you know, pretty much the OG half Tekin R1 tune and just, you know, let the castle and everything and the battery just like do the work. And it worked out obviously just fine. I don't see a reason to like mess with that stuff yet and change it. But ultimately, if we want to run, you know, 1.7s every time, like that's not going to happen, you know, but we need to be able to understand how to adjust those curve numbers and everything else as track conditions change and all that kind of stuff. Because at a long race, the track is going to go from like super sticky where, you know, you're maybe not even going to want to use prep. You're just going to want to use maybe some light tire conditioner because there's 40 foot of prep down the road. Or, you know, in our case, as more people were making licks down the track, there was getting to be a little bit of prep on there. So you, at that point, you take a gamble. You either try to increase your start power and hope it holds, or you just leave everything the same. So I chose to just leave everything the same that night, and I did not have a problem at all. Just, you know, the inconsistencies of the chassis and it's just beat up old condition. But things are happening and we'll see where we go next. That's going to do it. This was a long one. I appreciate all of you that stayed by for everything. Hope you learned something. Boy, did I learn a lot. So we'll talk to you guys later. Love you all. Peace.